when people realise it's very hard to ask people to integrate, or to say a multicultural leads to integration when you don't know what you're asking them to integrate to. And I think it will change when people start standing up to defend the best of the society, not the worst, not dodgy dossiers and 45-minute claims and peerages for plutocrats, but democracy, freedom of speech, the emancipation of women. And, you know, when people are actually proud of the best of our society and realise it's worth fighting for and worth arguing for. I think it is changing quite, at least I hope it is. Perhaps I'm being a cockeyed optimist, but I think it is changing quite quickly.
Okay, so I am halfway through your book, Nick, and I bought it myself. And I'm really enjoying it, and I think you've done a great job because someone had to say it. And I can imagine that you're probably getting a lot of flack from your colleagues and friends or former friends. But I think it's a very brave thing that you've done. So what... one of the things that really winds me up about the left elite in this country is the knee-jerk anti-Americanism. I lived most of my life in the Soviet Union under the communist system. And for me, the idea that American and British systems are the greatest evil in the world is, frankly speaking, laughable. So Deborah asked for examples when the left are betraying their liberal principles. So the discussion today focused mostly around the Iraq War and Muslims in this country, etc. I want to give a different example. I am Ukrainian. 2004. The run-up to the Orange Revolution in Ukraine. I am a Guardian reader, yeah? So I am reading one article by Jonathan Steele after another article by Jonathan Steele about the events, about what's happening in Ukraine in the run-up to the elections that are winding me up because I could see that he was not doing his journalistic job because he perceived at the time that the whole thing was orchestrated somehow by the United States. Then I happened to be working in Ukraine, although I've lived in this country since 1992, just on the day when it all started. And it was an absolutely amazing thing. I know Ukraine and Ukrainians pretty well. I know that they're not the people who go to the barricades like this, you know. One of the best-known Ukrainian sayings is, my house is at the end of the village and I don't want to know anything. So for Ukrainian people to actually go out en masse, in these freezing temperatures, it was something completely unprecedented for my country. And people really made themselves proud because for the first time they went out to defend their dignity. They wanted to have free and fair elections. And the authorities, the corrupt regime, was treating them like dirt. And then, you know, I turn on my computer, say, 2 days into the Orange Revolution, go to the Guardian website, and I can see another article by Jonathan Steele saying, of course, you know, it's all arranged by the United States. And I'm sorry, you know, I would very much like to believe that all these old, you know, little Ukrainian grannies who were spending the last kopecks from their miserable pension were getting these kopecks from CIA. But it was not true. And you see, people were defending things that people in this country, including Jonathan Steele, are taking for granted. Just the right to fair and free elections. And the left media, yes, but it was published in the liberal media, and there were quite a few articles actually saying that.
It's very funny you should say that. I mean, Steele, I just regard as a lover of totalitarian, really, whatever system, anything these days. But, I mean, a funny thing I should say about the Orange Revolution, I didn't get it in my book, but something that got me going on, just forget about the far left or the far right, whatever you want to call them these days, the liberal mainstream. There's a phrase I heard from, I think it was a BBC correspondent, it might have been a newspaper, because I could never find it, but this disillusion among the liberal mainstream with democracy. I heard some journalists, not an extremist at all, looking at those crowds in Kiev and saying, unlike us, they haven't learned how bad democracy is. And I thought, you silly, spoilt, stupid man.
Exactly.
That actually set me off on the whole thing of the book, just listening. And I wish I could find it. I've searched. We've got newspaper libraries at the Observer, and you can put in phrases, and I couldn't find it. It just haunted me ever since, that sentence. And I thought, dear God, there's something going really badly wrong. Anyway.
The word spoiled is spot on. That's the word that comes to my mind.
Thank you. How much do you think, on this question to both of you, that a lot of this issue is perhaps a push for absolutism in definition of what is left and what is right, and a push for people to be defined as for or against something, for the war, against the war, for the Republicans, against the Republicans, for Labour, against Labour? Do you think that there has been a shift in politics that has pushed for this kind of definition, that has perhaps led to this kind of issue where people that you would perhaps usually ascribe as being traditionally left are perhaps more confused?
I think there has been a lot of breakdown in the traditional ideas of left and right. Some of it in the past has been due to the emergence of single issue politics, so you get sort of, the rural poor being very much in favour of hunting, and you have, wealthy aristocratic chaps being terribly, terribly into ecology and so on and so forth. So a lot of it has broken down in that way. I think a lot of the breakdown between left and right thinking is to be welcomed, though. There's a lot of adversarialness and a lot of sort of spatting between left and right that isn't very helpful. There's, the politics for years and years has been dominated now by the supposed opposition between neoliberalism and liberalism, and liberalism is the thing that's causing all of the problems, no, neoliberalism is the thing that's causing all the problems, and you kind of, eventually sort of start to see that, they're in a symbiotic relationship, and one can't exist without the other, and the other can't be modified, and that you've really got to sort of stop just having these arguments and sort of have a look at how you can balance things better. So, yeah, I think that those old oppositions are breaking down, and that's a good thing.
It's been a very interesting discussion, but I'm surprised to find one point that the two of you are in agreement on is Iran. Realistically, I'm not a huge expert on Iran, but my feeling from having been briefly in the country and from what I've read about it and its recent history is that you may not be able to rely on nuclear deterrence and if it gets a nuclear weapon, whether declared or not, or even if it's realistically there, it'll set off proliferation all throughout the region. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, even Iraq again will go nuclear. What realistically do you expect can be